Hi, Peter Boolkah here, and welcome to today's edition of The Transition Going. Now today I'm in Rayleigh at the headquarters of CLS Money with founder and CEO Clayton Shipton. Hello Clayton.
Hi Pete.
Now your story is one that really fascinates me because you're one of those that had a corporate career before.
Yeah.
And you had a successful corporate career in finance. Why leave a successful career?
It wasn't through choice, to be fair. It was because of the recession back in 2007. So I spent probably 8-9 years sort of carved myself a bit of a career in financial services, made up myself to branch manager. Then the crash happened in 2007, and that was it. Redundancy, sort of flushed through the whole of the industry and found myself looking for a job with no qualifications, but loads of experience like everyone else out there.
But why then say, I'm going to work for myself?
For me, when I was redundant, I just was applying for jobs and realised that I had no qualifications. I decided that I wanted a career that was similar to what I'd done, which was at the time was loans and finance. Mortgages seemed like the next step, natural progression for me, but you needed a qualification to be able to do that. So I just, in my own time, went away and did my CMAPs, which is the qualification you need to be able to do that. And then with no real goal of where I would be the next year or next 3 or 4 years. And it wasn't until a colleague of mine or an ex-colleague of mine rang me up and said, I've just started a new role, that he just said, I heard you've got CMAPs, do you want to come along and work with us? So for the initial first 6 months, I actually went and worked for another company as a trainee mortgage broker.
Okay. Why did you not stay there?
Because after 6 months, I realised that I could do a better job than what they were doing, and put my managerial experience that I'd gained in the past and practice it into my own company whilst being a broker.
And that's quite interesting because most people that start up as entrepreneurs, they don't have any managerial experience. So the fact that you had that management experience to a degree could have given you probably an inside advantage.
Yeah, to be fair, it was a bit of I flip it again. I had all the experience of being a manager, but who was I managing? It was just myself. Yeah, exactly. And what I didn't really think about was when I took the leap from working for a company to doing it on my own, I knew I was a good broker. I knew I was good at sales. I knew I could build rapport with customers. I knew I could build a process or a checklist that I would stick to keep myself in line with what I need to do on a daily basis. But then I had to work out, I've got no leads. Where do I get my clients from? And so that's the bit I had to go back to basics and learn how to do.
And how was your first couple of years as a mortgage broker working for yourself?
Yeah, well, I knew how to do sales. I knew how to sell mortgages. I knew how to run myself and motivate myself. What I had to learn was how to be the marketing person, how to do the admin side of stuff, the banking. So there was loads more skills that I needed to learn. But then I had the passion and the belief that, and the motivation to do it myself and learn those new skills that I needed to learn. And to be fair, it was hard. It was like working from home, getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning, starting work at 7, finishing at 8 o'clock at night. There'd be days where I'd get up in my dressing gown and I'd still be sitting at 1 o'clock in my dressing gown still, waiting or not having time to shower or eat breakfast or anything. So, and that was 2-3 years of my life. So it was fun, it was exciting, but it's also quite scary.
I can imagine. And at which point did you sort of move to your first premises?
So it took probably after about 3 or 4 years. Actually it was 4 years because the biggest driver for me was I was sitting at home, it was November, my partner at the time, we was due our first child in the January, and I thought there's no way I can work from home with a baby in the house. As much as I'd love to, you'd end up distracted and doing baby stuff instead of actually trying to knuckle down and earn some money. So that was a driver for me, and at the time I'd moved into an estate agent's, had a desk in there and worked out there from their leads and my own leads that I was generating.
And then you got your own place?
Yeah. So that was probably another year, 2 years down the line. So started to build a bit of a reputation. The company was just me. And actually, funny story was that the estate agents that I worked with, they had a couple of apprentices on an apprenticeship scheme. Learnt about that, educated myself on that. Decided after a lot of touring and throwing in my mind if I could afford £400, £500 a month to go and get myself an apprentice. Took the jump, got someone, doubled my business levels overnight just by having somewhere to take that strain off of me so I could do what I was best at, which was talking to new clients.
And that's really important because there are so many. I know there's about 5.6 million SMEs out there, and believe it or not, around 4.2 million of them are one-man bands.
Right.
And they never made that transition. Now, how many years in were you when you made that transition to hire that apprentice?
Yeah, 5, 6 or so.
So it took you 5 years, and that is the fact that also a lot of it's mental for you to then hire your first person. But then that took you out of one-man band status.
Yeah.
And you had someone that would support you and make you more productive. And then how long before you started to build your team after that?
Well, to be fair, as soon as I got that one person, that one administrator, it sort of spiraled from there, really. Sort of, there was too much business coming in for me to handle. Took on another broker. That soon got followed up by another couple of admins. So once I took that leap of faith, probably in 6 months, we went from like just me to sort of 4 or 5 people. So because I could see, it was almost like someone opened the door for me and I could see all this opportunity and people I wanted to get more people on board and help me grow the business from the start.
And everyone at that stage would think it was all dandy and fine. What roadblocks did you hit at that stage? Because you grew your team quite quickly. So what problems did that pose?
It's hard, when it's your own business, you care about it. So, you go home, you think about your business, you wake up, you think about your business. When you've got people that are joining you, they don't care as much as what you do, but you get frustrated because you think, why don't they care as much? But I got quite lucky, the people that I hired, I didn't hire them with experience. I hired them with no experience. I hired them based purely on their personality. And if I liked them as a person and warmed to them, would my customers feel the same? And we've kept that hiring strategy ever since the start. So we've been lucky that way. And I guess the other sort of issues that I come across was that I knew how to manage my day. How would I manage their day, or what support and what did they need to be able to do their job effectively? And you try things and then you rip it up and you start again and you try something and you just got to really just trust in yourself that in time you will get it right. The other part of it as well is that I used to spend so much time trying to crunching numbers to see if I could afford to do this or afford to not do this. And in the end, I just think go with your gut. If it feels right and you think it's a good fit, whatever it might be, new computers, another staff member, a bigger office premises, use your gut. And I spent way too much time. Even the best probably bit of advice I could give a new business owner is don't go cheap. I've probably spent thousands and thousands of pounds on websites whereby I've tried the cheapest, didn't like it, then got something better, and now I've gone for like the full shebang website, and actually I could have just cut all that part out at the start and just jumped straight to it.
But the reality is you've also grown over that period of time.
Yeah,
so perhaps,
and probably I can afford it, as well, yeah.
So you obviously had your sort of 5 or 6 staff. How long did you stay at 5 or 6 staff? How long was you then at that level?
Yeah, so we seem to just, probably about another year, I guess. I sort of come probably mentally to a bit of a roadblock.
What did that look like?
Honestly, I don't know. It's just a mental mind block, I guess. You sort of look back and reflect, and you think, oh my God, have I done the right thing? You know, I'm now responsible, not just for my own family and feeding them, but I'm now responsible for 5 other people. You know, if I'm not paying the bills, how are they, you know, so a lot of things go in your mind. And I guess as well, I was always ticking about what's important and trying to focus on everything and actually not focusing on the main areas of my business that made the difference. So I did sort of stutter for quite a while, probably just through fear, if anything else.
So what was your next growth after that?
That was you.
Okay, now I was fortunate to come into your life.
Yeah.
But for you, obviously, you were in that stuck point. What was it you wanted to achieve? Because actually your stuck point wasn't a bad place. So many entrepreneurs out there would have really, to get to your stuck point, would have been an absolutely amazing achievement for them. Why more for you?
I just wanted to achieve more. You know, I never really had an end goal. You know, I didn't want to, you know, it wasn't like I wanted my own private aeroplane or a sports car. I just had a burning desire inside to do more, and I sort of knew where I wanted to get, but it was hazy and I didn't really know what the next step to take was or what to focus on. And I needed that bit of guidance from someone to sort of help me work out a sort of roadmap of where to go, what's important, what's not important.
I think you were where so many people are currently, because where you were going after that was a road that you've never ever trodden before. It was a pathway that you've yet to see.
Yeah.
So actually knowing how to walk that pathway is probably the most difficult thing.
Yeah, totally. It's the best thing, you know, the best way to describe it for me being in the corporate world as well was that when I was a branch manager, I had an area manager that would come in once a month and they would look at what you'd achieved that month, any staff issues, where's your strong sales, where's your weaknesses, what you work on. And I suppose that was what I was looking for when obviously I found you, Pete. So because that accountability is probably the best word to use for it. You know, someone that you could go to and, you know, you've never told me the answers. The answers are in my head. I've just got a million answers and you just pick out the right answers that I need.
But that's the thing. If you look at it, I mean, you were talented anyway. So you had all the raw ingredients. It was just that someone to bounce off of.
Yeah.
And actually get clarity to your thoughts.
Exactly. Clarity is the best.
Because in all fairness, you've done this. It's not been me.
Yeah.
You've gone out there and everything that you've got today, you've made happen. And from moving you stayed in the shop for a short while after that, but then you took the really big jump of going for a much bigger space. I mean, what was it, 5 or 6 times the space you had before?
Yeah. I think we went from like 600 square foot to just short of 2,000 square foot.
And that was scary, right?
Yeah, and I remember the conversation that we had, and it was, Pete, I've run out of space. I think I had 4 new starters due to start in the January. This was the November. And the conversation that we had was, I've got this little office suite. It's £400 a month. I've got 4 new people. Do I squeeze them in here? So we get to, I think it was 10 in this little room.
Little sweatshop.
Yeah, exactly. But obviously where I lived, there was a farm and they did the converted containers. I said, so I could put some in there. But you'd thought back to my original conversation we had probably a year earlier, was that one of my dreams was that I'd like to see us in a big office in London. It's only half an hour down the road from us. So you sort of gave me the confidence to sort of go and look for something a bit better. We've obviously come up with this office that we are in now. It's not London, but it's a lovely office. It's probably 4 or 5 times the cost of the sweatbox and the container. However, what it has given us is somewhere that we can all be proud of. People walk into and go, wow. And it's a cost. However, probably the return on that cost is second to none.
You know what's really interesting as well, though? Because like when you first had it, you were rattling around in here. You had so much space. But it's like anything, a fish will grow to the size of its tank. And coming in here today, guess what?
Yeah.
The organisation has grown to the size of your office.
Yeah. And that's the other thing as well. You know, we probably the last office we had, we got an office for our size, and when we moved into here, we got an office to grow into, not for our needs there. It was where do we want to be in 2-3 years time? Let's get an office that we can have spare desks, but we can grow into it. And do you know what? It's a great kicker, because if you've got spare desks, it's always in the front of your mind. How can we get more people? How can we grow? How can we, you know, make our business bigger?
You know you're moving again, don't you?
Yeah.
You
told me.
You're going to have to. So you look at it, and in all fairness, your business has had exceptional growth. If you take the last 3 years, you have really grown your business. What are the sort of top 5 things that you have done to make that possible?
Oh, top 5 things.
Well, not even top 5, your top things that you have done that really made that growth possible.
You know, I suppose for me, the top things I've done is I've continued to hire people on personalities and, you know, their drive and wanting to work for CLS as opposed to wanting a job, so they want a career. People that have no experience that you're prepared to put time into and train up, they will work their socks off for you because they're getting something big in return. So that's a major factor for us, and we've been lucky enough that we've got a high staff retention rate, and everyone out there is CLS through and through. They enjoy working here, they're proud to work here, and they all believe, and they have a long career in front of them. So that's a really good thing for us. And I guess investing, just in putting back investment into the company. We've invested in, you know, like I said earlier, on a top-notch website. We've built our own bespoke CRM, which was a massive cost for us, a massive investment, but it's really reduced our processing times.
The one thing I want to add to this, because a lot of people see the successful entrepreneur and they think it's okay for them loads of money, but you've not been the highest earner in your own business, have you?
No.
For a number of years. In fact, you were earning more money for yourself personally when you were by yourself.
Yeah.
And that is the key that actually you have massively put into that business. And that's what's probably allowed you to grow the way you have. And you've not been scared to put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
And a lot of people wouldn't do that.
Yeah, totally. You know, I could, you know, if I didn't invest in our CRM, I could be driving about in a Lamborghini. You know, I could be going on nice holidays. But I've kept my feet on the ground. I've tried to keep myself humble, I guess, and still be the hardest working person here. I've not taken my foot off the gas.
And I think that's been a big part of your success, is the fact that you've shown your people you're willing to invest in them. And that's why when we walked in here earlier, the buzz here was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Your people know that you care.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, you invest in developing your people. And that is huge.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, you know, they're the. You don't want people that are going to come to work and not be happy. You know, if they're coming to work, they enjoy it, they can see themselves, they've got a future, and they can see that you're investing time in them. There's no reason for them to go anywhere else, and it's a lot cheaper to retain staff than it is to get new staff and train them in. So, you know, that's worked well for us, and they can see that and they believe it, and we live by that. I know it's easy to say that, but actually,
you can feel it.
Yeah, and we're working on stuff at the moment with a guy, a well-known sales trainer, and again to improve them as people, just to make them better, so they get something out of it.
And you know what's interesting? They're not doing a bad job, but it's not about even doing a bad job or doing a good job. You want everyone doing a great job. You want to be out there as the best, and that is really interesting. That when you've got that kind of burning desire. That really does transform a business.
Yeah, and it's all about them guys. I'm not a mortgage broker no more. You know, they're the guys that are talking to our customers. They're the ones that are doing it day in, day out. And, you know, for me, for us as a business, it's all about communication and the customer. And, you know, the best yardstick for me is our reviews, you know, and if we're constantly getting 5-star reviews, then I know they're doing a great job. And it's great to see, and obviously the outcome for the customer is obviously the best outcome as well.
Now, how many years have you been in business?
9 years, so since
9
2011.
years. This is really important because when people go into business, I think they get caught up too much in the hype that it's going to be really easy and you're an overnight success. And it's been the last 3 years that I've seen you really take off.
Yeah.
So it's taken you between years 7 and 9 to really start motoring.
Yeah.
And it's important for people to understand that you are going to bitch yourself out, you are going to work hard,
Yeah.
and you know what it's like.
Well, yeah, exactly. You know, I'm not, you know, it's, you know, you do the networking events and stuff like that, and it makes me laugh when you see people with their business card, it says CEO. You know, oh, how many people you got working here? It's like, it's just me. And I think too many people worry about the stuff that's not important. The title, I'm a director, I'm this. And it's just like, no, strip it back. What do you do? I'm a mortgage advisor. You know, and you're just, the success will come later on. The reason why we've motorised or gone so much in the last couple of years is because we've got a momentum going now. You know, once you've got going and you've got it up to there, it's not, you know, it's not easy, but it's a lot easier than what it is at the start.
But you're now doing the job you should be doing. You're doing the job of a leader of a business. And the interesting thing is you're no longer doing stupid shit.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things that people really get caught up in, doing the stuff that really isn't going to grow the business, but just keeps them busy,
Yeah.
but keeps them stuck. So if you were to give any entrepreneur listening in today a piece of advice, what would it be? What would be your one piece of advice for anyone in business?
Well, I think you just hit it on the head. You know, if you're, whatever you do, if you're a plumber or a mortgage advisor or a singer or something like that, stick to what you do. You know, stick to your core experience and do that. Don't busy yourself trying to think of the next marketing idea or, you know, building your own website. Let a website designer do your website for you. You know, let a social media person do your social media. If you're a plumber and you want more business, go out, be a plumber, you know, give great customer service and you'll just grow it like there. And then once you get to a certain size, you can then hire someone else, a trainee, someone that's no experience, train them to be like you, and then you leverage it then, aren't you? And then you can just keep going from there.
Play to your strengths.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been absolutely a pleasure. For those of you there in business, probably see a few things that resonate with you. Let me know in the comments below. What is it that you've heard today or seen today that really you can resonate with? What have your experiences been like in business? Where have you succeeded? Where are you stuck? And most importantly, make sure that you take the right action and move forward. There is no such thing as an overnight success, as you've seen from Clayton. It's been 9 years, but if you're prepared to put the work in, have the patience and tenacity, and believe and put back yourself, it is true, you can achieve the results. It's that perseverance.
Yeah.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Clayton.
you. Cheers, Pete.